Chapter 16. Knowing we both needed time, I gathered clothing and took it into the bathroom with me and showered. Despite popular opinion, cold or rather cool showers don't do anything to curb sexual desire. But it did give me time to think and gain greater control over my flesh, which still screamed at me for denying it what it wanted. Roberto stood as I entered the living room. "We need to talk," he quietly stated. "I'm sorry." It just burst out without any forethought. He tilted his head to the side. "For?" If Roberto were anyone else, I would have thought he was being sarcastic, looking for his pound of flesh after the way I'd treated him. But I knew Roberto sincerely wanted to know why I'd apologized. It showed in the surprise on his face. "For blowing up, storming out, and not returning your calls. As much as I hate apologizing, I have no problems admitting when I am wrong." "Come, sit down." He motioned toward the couch. When I was seated, he sat close next to me, hesitated, and then increased the distance between us. I couldn't help but smile at this telling action. He turned to me and brought his knee up on the couch between us. My gaze dropped to his crotch, and I hurriedly snatched it away, hopefully before he noticed. "I've never seen you so angry," he began. "Well, I've never had a man announce he's in love with me and plans to marry me without discussing it with me first," I sniped. Okay, apparently it was still a sore spot with me. Roberto frowned. "Surely you understand why." The problem was, I did understand. Roberto was an honorable man, a true gentleman. He was also more concerned about my reputation than I. In fact, today was the first hint of impropriety he'd ever shown towards me. I sighed. "I understand, but that's not exactly the way a woman wants to be told that she's loved, or that the man she's seeing is contemplating marriage." He moved close enough to cup my cheek. "It shouldn't have come as a surprise. I told you from the beginning I wanted everything. What did you think I meant?" "Not marriage, obviously, although I should have known." "Nina?" he questioned when I didn't answer. "I don't know. I didn't think. Just kind of went with the flow," I said. "And now that you know?" He gazed intently into my eyes, demanding things of me I wasn't sure I had to give. Though I didn't want to hurt Roberto, I knew I needed to be honest with him. "I think maybe this isn't such a good idea. I don't want to hurt you, but I don't love you. As far as marriage goes, that's something I'm not and may never be ready for." His smile was mysterious, secretive even, as if he knew something I didn't, and the knowledge amused him. "Let me worry about my heart. Did you miss me at all this last week and a half?" I closed my eyes, not wanting to see his reaction as I admitted. "Yes." "Look at me." He waited until I obeyed. "Do you want me in your life?" Staring into his eyes, I could see tenderness and another emotion I wouldn't identify, as again I admitted. "Yes." "Then, as far as I'm concerned, nothing has changed. We're still taking it one day at a time, getting to know each other and enjoying one another's company," he stated firmly, as though that settled everything. "But," he kissed me silent. While not the unrestrained passion of before, this kiss, nevertheless, held more heat than the gentle pecks of the past. It effectively silenced me and robbed me of every protest. Roberto stood and pulled me to my feet. No buts. Now, let's get out of here and go get something to eat before I forget myself again. I was happy, very content. Life was good and I was enjoying every moment of it. 2 months later, and Roberto and I were still going strong as ever. I kept waiting for him to slip, to be something other than what he portrayed himself to be, but so far he hadn't. I'd seen him tired, angry, and frustrated. I could tell by the inflection in his voice what type of mood he was in. Our friendship grew stronger by the day, and I found myself sharing with Roberto things I'd previously only told to God. Roberto was learning me as well. When I shared a problem with him, he'd ask, "Do you want a sounding board or advice?" Most times, the answer was a sounding board, although I discovered Roberto frequently provided deep insight into problems which helped me make proper decisions without emotions clouding my view. We also worked well together, as Pastor discovered when he assigned us to work on one of the many projects always needing completing at the church. The twins looked forward to seeing Roberto as much as I did, and I was as comfortable in his home as I was in mine. We worked hard to keep our relationship above reproach, although you wouldn't believe it the way some people acted. "I can't believe the way they're flaunting their relationship. Pastor needs to sit both of them down. I know they're having sex. You can tell by the way they are together. And I know for sure they aren't married. Sinning in the house of the Lord? I don't know what Roberto sees in her anyway. He's too good for her." I'd innocently walked into the women's restroom to find Roberto and me the topic of discussion. "It's 'cause she's giving it up. You know men never marry those kinds. They just take what they want and move on to the next woman. Give a man free milk," another voice said. I rounded the corner of the wall, separating the lounge from the restroom area into view. "Really? And you two know so much?" I asked mildly, enjoying their dismay at being caught gossiping. Then I placed my hand on my hips and let them both have exactly what they deserve for being so trifling. "How dare you two sit here gossiping, judging my and Roberto's relationship when you know nothing? As if either of you have room to talk." I pointed to the one on the left. "Sister Purcell, I noticed you don't have your baby with you today. It's such a shame her daddy decided not to leave his wife after all." Sister Purcell sucked in a shocked breath at my audacity. Shaking my head in mock sympathy, I turned to confront the other woman. "And Sister Connor, I guess you'd know all about giving men free milk. After all, how long did you and your man shack up before you finally convinced him to marry you?" Brenda Connors looked at me as though I were the devil incarnated. Ignoring their combined sputtering, I gave them a warning. "Before you ladies, and I use the term loosely, sling mud, you might want to make sure your own lives are above reproach. These other women may smile in your face and let you get away with your holier-than-thou attitudes and snide comments, but I won't. I guarantee if we start comparing notes, you'll come out much worse than I." There came a muffled snicker from one of the stalls. Another woman, who'd been waiting to get to the sink, said, "It's about time somebody brought you two biddies down a peg or two." The ladies in question swept out of the bathroom, purses clutched tight to their chests. Good riddance. I hated petty-mindedness. Life was tough enough without having to deal with other people's negativity. I handled my business and returned to Roberto, still fired up. He leaned close so he could be heard over the music and asked, "What happened? You're angry." I shook my head and made a dismissive motion. "Nothing important." Their jealousy wouldn't ruin my day, because that's all it was. They'd wanted Roberto and were angry he hadn't been interested in them, despite all they'd done over the years to attract his attention. I still wasn't sure why he'd picked me, or what it was about me that drew him, but I don't worry overly much about it. Roberto thought he was in love with me, and sometimes I believed it was true. I was taking things one day at a time. Chapter 17. A couple of weeks later, I waited for Roberto to pick me up for a couple's banquet we were attending, sponsored by the marriage and family ministry of our church. I'd splurged and purchased a gorgeous chiffon dress for the occasion. It had a handkerchief hem, deep V neckline, and 3/4 length sheer sleeves. What I loved about it was that it hugged me in the right areas and skimmed the problem ones. In it, I felt beautiful, dainty, and graceful as it floated around my calves with my slightest movement. The slingback heels I wore added a few inches to my height. When I saw the heat and admiration in Roberto's gaze, I included sexy with my list of adjectives. "You always look beautiful, but today you outdid yourself. I only wish you'd left your hair down," he commented. I reached up to straighten his already perfect tie, just needing to touch him. "You're looking rather debonair yourself." "Come here. I need my kiss." Roberto slid his hands down from my waist to grip me by the hips as he pulled me forward. With my added height, we stood almost eye to eye. Perfect for kissing. By the time he turned me loose, my breathing was heavy, and I was more interested in staying in than going out. It set the tone for the rest of the evening. The MFM had wisely made the decision to hold the banquet in a facility away from the church. Delicious food, lively companions, and lovely accommodations marked the evening. The live jazz band was absolutely incredible, and a Christian comedian made me laugh until I cried. The highlight of the evening was the dancing. I read in a book once where dancing was described as making love with your clothes on. Roberto made it true. There was nothing lewd or obscene about our actions. With my arms around his neck and his low on my hips, he held me close enough for our chests and pelvises to rub with each step. He was aroused, and I'd been in a low state of excitement since our kiss. Tonight's romantic atmosphere kept us both at a low hum. Now that the festivities were over, I wasn't ready for the evening to end. "Let's go somewhere." Roberto smiled as he helped me into the SUV. "Where?" A horn blew as one of the other vehicles passed us. Roberto and I both waved in acknowledgement. All around us, couples stood and talked, while others drove off to pick up children and head home. "I don't care. I'm just not ready to go home," I told him as I fastened my seatbelt. He closed my door and walked around to get in on his side. "It's a little too cool to walk along the river," Roberto commented as he started the engine. Snapping my fingers, I announced, "That's perfect. Besides, I trust you to keep me warm." He reached out, took my hand, and kissed the back of it before holding it between us. "The river walk it is." While definitely chilly, it wasn't too cool to spoil my enjoyment as we walked along the riverbank's boardwalk. At one point, Roberto pinned me against the railing and kissed me, again. I burrowed my arms under his jacket and held him close. He caged me in, looked me in the eye and said, "I love you." "Why?" He chuckled. "That right there is one of the many reasons." My left eyebrow arched in surprise. "Because I questioned you?" Grinning, he corrected me. "No, because you don't see your own worth." I frowned at him. "Are you saying I have low self-esteem?" "No, I'm saying you don't realize how precious you are." I snorted. "I'm blunt and outspoken." "You're open and honest," Roberto contradicted me. I narrowed my eyes at the way he twisted my negative to a positive. "You're also loyal, faithful, and loving," he continued, dropping a kiss on my forehead. "You make me sound like a golden retriever," I mocked, griped, though inwardly I was pleased. He burst out laughing. And you have a wonderful sense of humor. You must be in love, or blind. I'm not sure which applies, I told him wryly. He kissed me again, a long, lingering one. It's love. A breeze, colder than the rest, blew across the river, and I shivered. Let's get you out of this cold. He escorted me back to the vehicle. I still wasn't ready to go home, but knew remaining out here, dressed as I was in this chilly spring air, would have been foolish. When we reached my house, Roberto cut off the engine, which clued me in he planned on coming inside. Good, as I was nowhere ready for him to leave. I wanted to continue our discussion. As we entered the house, I kicked off my shoes, glad to be out of them. Loved the way they looked on me, but I wasn't really a heel wearer. Wiggling my toes, I followed Roberto to the couch. He took off his jacket and tossed it onto the love seat, loosened his tie, and the first few buttons of his shirt before being seated. Instead of sitting beside him as normal, I knelt on the cushion facing him. Seriously, Roberto, how can you be so sure it's love? We haven't been together long. You don't know me well enough, I said, contrarily willing to argue the point. He captured me by the waist and pulled me until I straddled his lap. If we're going to have this conversation, I want you close. My hands automatically went to his chest as my dress rose up around my thighs. Roberto's large, calloused hands cupped my butt and pulled me even closer until my crotch nestled against his groin. Suddenly, I became uncomfortably aware of the dampness in my underwear. If this is supposed to help me concentrate on our conversation, it's not working, I warned. His grin was a trifle wicked. No, this is for me. I couldn't help but laugh at him. However, I quickly sobered as he began to speak. You think I don't know you, but I do. I've been watching and learning you for a while. Eyes narrowed, I asked, how long is a while? He tightened his grip on my butt like he expected me to bolt. 40 years, long before I ever approached you. In fact, since I joined the church. I froze, stunned. Roberto joined House of Prayer a few years after I did, and I'd been at the church for 11 years, since the twins were 2. I quickly did the math. 8 years. He'd been watching me for 8 years. Before I could recover, he tipped me over onto my back on the couch and came down on top of me. What's more, you love me too. What? What makes you say that? It was hard to think with us lying like we were. I shook my head, disagreeing with him. Yes, you do. I know you do. You just haven't admitted it to yourself, but you will. He seemed utterly convinced of what he was saying. I wiggled to get into a more comfortable position and stopped when I felt the lower portion of his anatomy harden and rise. Pressed as he was against my mound, I couldn't help but notice. I don't like your hair like this. Lift up. I immediately raised my head so he could pull all the pins out of my hair. He unraveled my French roll and spread my curls out on the couch. That's much better. Roberto, I sighed, not wanting to disappoint him. I like you a lot. I enjoy being with you. But that's not love. Nina, he mocked. You love me as much as I love you. Want to know how I know? Yes. Tell me why you're so sure of yourself. I smirked at him, convinced he wouldn't be able to prove his case. I'd know if I was in love with the man. Wouldn't I? Roberto rose to his knees and slid his hands straight up my thighs, under my dress until his hands gripped my panties. I grabbed his forearms. What are you doing? Taking these. Very nice, he commented as he stripped the panties right off me and tossed them to the side. I held my skirt down to keep myself covered, but otherwise did little to stop him. What did that prove? I asked as he settled back on top of me, braced on his forearms above me. Remember that day in the exercise room? He asked, instead of answering my question. How could I forget? I still dreamt about it, but in my dreams, we didn't stop. Yes, but what has that to do with this? He gave me that mysterious smile of his again and chuckled. You really don't know yourself very well, do you? That night, if I'd pushed, you would have let me make love to you. You took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to see you, and I'd missed you, I explained. Uh-huh. And right now, even knowing it's wrong, you'd let me strip this dress off of you and make love to you all night. What does that tell you? He arched a brow while he awaited my answer. Still caught up on the all night part of his statement, I said, that I'm horny? He laughed, took my hands, and pinned them down over my head. Roberto lowered his face until we were nose to nose. My eyes almost crossed looking at him. You called me baby. No, I didn't, I firmly denied. Baby is what I'd called Ronald until he pissed me off that last time. Then I called Ron by his name, his last name. Roberto was so close I felt his breath on my lips as he spoke. Yes, you did. The first time was the night we almost made love, and you've done it several times since. I vigorously shook my head. He dropped a kiss on my lips. I hate to drag you out of the denial you're in, but you love me. And this. He looked down at my body, stretched out beneath him. Proves it. You are not the type of woman to give your body, unless you've already given your heart. His insight rocked me to my core. Pushing his revelation to the side to deal with later, I rose up and kissed him, teasing his lips with mine. I nibbled around the edges before pulling his lower lip into my mouth and sucking on it. Simultaneously, I wrapped both of my legs around his and arched into him. Roberto groaned and took charge of the kiss, changing the angle to deepen it. I was uniquely aware there are only 3 thin layers of material keeping him away from where I wanted him to be. The kiss went on and on until we both gasped for air. Roberto rested his forehead against mine, breathing hard. That's enough of that. He released me, got up on his knees, and tugged me into a seated position. Any more, and what those women said at church will be the truth. My mouth dropped open as my eyes widened in astonishment. How did you? I told you. I observe. I know everything that concerns you, especially in house of prayer. He leaned over and grabbed his jacket. I have something for you. What? I said warily. Roberto pulled out a velvet ring box, and I hastily withdrew. He caught me by the arm before I could flee the couch. It's not an engagement ring. I know you're not ready, but get ready because it's coming. He flipped the box open, and inside was a gold and silver designed ring with a garnet, my birthstone, as the centerpiece. It's a Celtic knot. I leaned forward for a better look. It's beautiful. He took my left hand and slid it on the ring finger. Wear it. Get used to having my ring on your hand. Splaying my fingers, I waved my hand back and forth, watching the ring catch the light. Overwhelmed, I slid my hands into Roberto's hair and kissed him with all the pent-up emotion in me. When it was over, I once more straddled his lap, and his hands were under my dress, cupping my naked behind. I'll take that as a thank you. No, I really have to go before I get myself in trouble. He lifted me off him, gathered his things, and walked to the door. I followed and waited in the doorway while he walked to his SUV. Roberto paused before sliding into his vehicle, turned to me and said, "Think about what I said." "I will," I promised.